which is this June. And it's also in honor of National Indigenous Peoples Day that was observed last Monday on June 21st. And as individuals and as a campus, we need to be open to learning more about the history of the First Nations people and taking actions like reading the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report and looking at the 94 calls to action within this report. And obviously, we're very saddened to learn about the graves that have been uncovered at many of the residential school sites, both in British Columbia and Saskatchewan. And there was information in the TRC report on residential schools. So I encourage you all to take a look at that report. And Adler University is committed to efforts to indigenize our campus, our curriculum and programming, and having speakers like Indigenous Innovations as part of our commitment to learning more about First Nations history and ways of healing. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome John to our campus today.
Okay. Thanks so much for the warm welcome, Suzanne. Thank you everybody for tuning in to watch and attend my presentation on bringing reconciliation to the medical system. My name is John Su. I'm one of the co-founders of Indigenous Innovations. My partner is Adrian Beaverbones from the Ochies First Nations Band. Today, we're going to talk about how we've created a mini micro medical system in Vancouver, and we've helped First Nations to accessing their healthcare benefits. Okay. Sorry, I'm just learning how to use this program. So our agenda for today is we're going to talk about the team, which I think is absolutely vital. We've spent a lot of time putting the right people in the right places because what we do is a very sensitive area, and it's all about putting the right people for the right mission to accomplish the right results. A second thing we're going to talk about is really important is reconciliation. Like, what is reconciliation? A third thing we're going to talk about is how we unknowingly created a solution based on these principles. As I was putting this presentation together, and after I looked at the Reconciliation Council's definition of what reconciliation is, I realized that how we've built our system was based a lot on these same principles. It was actually quite shocking. So what actually made my work a lot easier in creating this slideshow is that I just based it on that definition and filled it in with what we actually did. The fourth thing, I'm going to talk about the actual results we've actually had in the community, because I think that's really important. Beyond talking about ideas, beyond talking about what should happen, we need to share and discuss what has happened, but more importantly, what we have discovered in the process of creating, this micro medical system. And then the last part, probably the last 10, 15 minutes, it'll be open question and answer. And I would love to answer any questions that anyone had. The whole presentation should take anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes. So thank you very much in taking the time to attend. So our team consists of myself and my partner, Adrian Beaverbones. Adrian, he's more the background guy and does things in Edmonton. Myself, I'm stationed in Vancouver. Our resident elder, Kelly White from the Musqueam Nation, she is our guiding angel who was brought in by my friend James Delorme. Kelly is our matriarch, our leader, our cultural consultant. She is the one who really brings the wisdom, the knowledge, and also the Indigenous insight of how we create a system that is Indigenous friendly. Kelly's very well known in Vancouver. She's a teacher, she's an elder. She's been an advocate for First Nations in Vancouver for many, many decades. Another team member that's been with us since December of last year is Janaray Tom from the Navajo Nation. Janaray also brings a wealth of knowledge with her. She has many experiences and has done many workshops for First Nations in the US and also Canada. A big thing that you'll notice in our team is that it's largely mostly First Nations centered, because what we know and we believe is that the system that currently exists to service First Nations in the medical system, it is not Indigenous focused, nor is it Indigenous friendly. So in building our team, we had to put the right people with the right knowledge to help us create a functional system for Indigenous people, but also a functional system for the service providers that work in the medical system. So let's start talking about what reconciliation is. And this is the definition that I've taken from the Reconciliation Council. Reconciliation is about establishing and maintaining a respectful relationship between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal in this country. In order for that to happen, there has to be awareness of the past, an acknowledgement of harm that has been inflicted, atonement for the causes and actions to change behavior. So today's presentation will be based on those 4 factors. Awareness of the past. So one thing that myself, I will be upfront with you, I do not have much knowledge in regards to Indigenous history. I have very few Indigenous contacts or social networks. The only Indigenous people I know are my partner, Adrian Beaverbones, and also Kelly and the friends and contacts that I've developed since being in the industry. So it's been very limited. But the things that I had researched and looked into to educate myself about what our clients have gone through, stuff such as the residential schools, the Indian Act, the history of the blanket ceremony. I dug deeper to find out what has happened in the past and how did that break the trust. And doing just a bit of research, it was quite shocking what I discovered. And the shocking part, besides what actually happened, is the fact that I've been in Canada over 40 years, and this is the first time that I've heard about residential schools, the Indian Act, the history of the blanket ceremony. And it's not that I've been hiding in a cave for the last 40 years. I'm quite out and about, but I've never known about these items. Another thing in terms of bringing, my knowledge and our awareness to the past, we had to figure out, how did the past history of trauma get carried forth into the generations of today? And something to think about is trauma versus intergenerational trauma. 2 things that are similar, very similar, but very, very different. And also another thing that we had to kind of become aware of in the past is, what were the mitigating factors at that time that allowed this to continue? Ideas that came up were corruption, coercion, blind trust. Those were some of the things that came to mind when we were building this mini system. Second part of the Reconciliation Council's definition, acknowledgement of the harm that has been inflicted. I think it's absolutely critical when solving problems. We must acknowledge the problem for what it actually is, for the depth and the degree to what had actually happened. When you look at the colonial system, that's the reason they have 1st degree, 2nd degree, and manslaughter, because the degree and intention behind the actions sets the tone, the mood for everything else. So when we talk about acknowledgement of harm and what has been inflicted, proper acknowledgement, in my opinion, has never happened from the Canadian government. And this is through the discovery of reading up and researching government related material about the history of the government and Indigenous people. I was taking a course from the University of Alberta, and as I was reading through it and got to the part of residential schools and how they dealt with the land, the land issues. I had talked to many elders first and heard their own personal stories about the residential schools, about how things were dealt with, the stories that their grandparents had told them. So I had some basic understanding before I went to the University of Alberta course. And then when I started to read the material about how it was interpreted, what happened at the residential schools, and how First Nations were treated through the court system, I really felt as an outsider, not part of the Indigenous world, not part of the medical system or the government. And I thought something really unfair has happened here. Because how they describe it in the material of the, what they're presenting to the general public, other Canadians, other non-Indigenous, this is the most minimized report or statement about those issues. And it was to the point of where I felt that I was reading almost a fictional course, because it was so minimized that it was to the point of saying the Jewish and German genocide was a lot of murders. And that's how it was described. A couple of sentences minimized and really took away from the acknowledgement of what actually happened.
John,
Yeah.
it's Suzanne here. Did you mean to stop sharing your slides, or would you like to reshare them again?
Yeah, actually, I
Okay.
stopped sharing the slides because I think it's important. Kind of nobody wants to look at slides all day. So,
Okay.
so yeah, I'm kind of just reading off the slides because it's my guide. So acknowledgement of harm that has been inflicted. Knowing what has actually happened from our clients and from our elders, trust with the government and the medical system is broken. It's not, and hearing the stories of our clients, hearing the reasons they don't want to use the medical system, it's not even a bad experience. It's a traumatic, PTSD experience where they would rather die at home than go to the hospital. And that was something shocking that I couldn't believe. That was a belief in the Indigenous community. We have a lot of elders, a lot of Indigenous clients that told me I have to be carried in a stretcher because I will never call 911 and go to the hospital willingly. So just hearing those stories and talking to people on the phone live as they say that, and me knowing that they need to go to the hospital, is quite heartbreaking. But it made me wonder more about what actually happened, in the past, and how has that affected through the generations. Racism, acknowledgement of how racism is in the medical system. I also don't believe it has fully been addressed, even though the report has just come out recently, I believe this year, that there was a report that talks about how racism is in plain sight now, which is, I've known that without even digging any deeper. But you look at how the report has been generated. It's 2021, and they've only come to that discovery now, and they've only had the report now. Me, as a third-party objective person, would look at that and say, what's going on here? It's 2021, and they only just confirm that now in their system. And how much money did they waste? Something doesn't make sense, because if you look at a lot of other things that happen within government or just anywhere, nothing takes that long. So those are some of the things that we were thinking about and had questions around in terms of the acknowledgement of the harm that has been inflicted. The third part of the reconciliation, atonement of the causes. I'll be honest with you people, my education is not top notch. It's actually barely better than high school. So I actually had to Google up the definition of atonement, and then playing with the different definitions and trying to make sense of that. Atonement is making right for the wrongs of the past. And I'm not trying to insult anyone's intelligence here. That was for my own knowledge, because I had no idea of what atonement meant. So when we talk about making the wrong, making right the wrongs of the past, you got to ask, how can we make the past right today in the present? we can't change the past. Everybody knows that. But one thing, and the very absolute critical thing to even entertaining or making any noticeable change or reconciliation for the past, is we must first acknowledge it. And in how we've built everything, we acknowledge and understand what residential school, the blanket ceremony, government abuse, racism, social challenges, psychological challenges of today, all of those complex web of problems. We don't question it, we don't doubt it, we acknowledge it and accept it, and we build systems around to manage that. Because I think that's the one major flaw of today's medical system, is that it is designed for someone who's technologically savvy, somebody who knows the whole system, somebody who trusts the system. But for any of those things to not exist, the current medical system, you will find that is designed against you, that you will not use it. And that's what we found, is the current medical system is not Indigenous friendly. Another thing we thought about is what we might do today so that we don't repeat history. I'm a big believer of fighting for what's right. And for us to not repeat history, especially with everything coming out with residential schools, the unmarked graves being discovered, and there's going to be way more, Canadian citizens should be an ally to help Indigenous of Canada, not a frenemy. And I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with what a frenemy is, but a frenemy is somebody who is nice to your face, but doing bad things behind your back. So for example, somebody who, for social media posts or for whatever reason, will show up at a rally, but they actually don't care about supporting that cause. For us, we have a deep down desire, myself, our team, Adrian, Kelly, and Jana Ray, we've committed our lives to forever impacting how First Nations are treated and experience the medical system. This is something that we do because we care, not because of the money, which is part of the equation. We are a business, and I'm not going to say, oh, absolutely not, I'm an angel, I'm doing it out of the goodness of my heart. Absolutely not. There's a financial portion, but more of what's the driving factor of helping people is you need to really care about helping people. We really care about helping First Nations. And if you talk to anybody who works in the downtown east side, there is no amount of money that is worth it to keep us there. Anyone who is there is, one, really wants to be there because they care and they believe that they can make change, or two, they're not able to get out of there as a result of whatever social or economical or psychological challenges. That's what I've noticed being down there for 2 years. All of the people who have the option to leave and don't actually want to be down there, they left. They went and found better positions where they didn't have to deal with the stresses. The last thing, which I think is absolutely the most important part of reconciliation, actions to change behaviors. Enough talk about wanting to help, enough talk about saying we're going to help. What are you doing today so that we have a different tomorrow? I think that's really important, especially going to rallies and everything else. We always talk about what has happened in the past. But if we're having the same rally, the same problem year after year after year, what are we doing today to create that same tomorrow? Or what are we not doing today to create a different tomorrow? So what we've done, which is totally a random idea that got built piece by piece, and it just ended up being a micro healthcare system, is that we've created a micro healthcare system where we had influence on the accountability. And the reason accountability is so vital in this whole micro healthcare system is because the biggest complaint that I've heard from our clients is that, one, nobody listens to us. And it's often stories of where the clients have been banned from a store or just totally ignored because It was the freedom and right of a small business to choose who they want to work with. And there was way too many stories of where there were healthcare providers that should have, by obligation and duty, taken care of the client, but they chose not to, and they chose to exercise their personal decision to basically shut down the client, which that's one thing that makes my blood boil, is when there is abuse of power, when you have a duty in serving the client, that you need to, when you understand that you are helping the client, you put your own personal benefit out of the way momentarily to at least cover your legal responsibility. And there was many stories that I've heard that people were just using that freedom and saying, I'm not helping you anymore because of your rude behavior, which I don't believe is fair for our clients. So as a result of creating that accountability layer, we've broken the cycle of racism and discrimination by adding that layer of accountability. And you're probably wondering, how did we break that cycle of racism and discrimination? It's because all of the people that we work with, I picked out personally, and they've all made a commitment to me that we will give an extra layer of compassion and care for our First Nation clients. And the fact that is, if you look at the business part of things, as I mentioned before, we're a business, we're not a government agency or a social agency. We are paid to market and promote. So that's how we make our money. And you as a business, if we are bringing you a good amount of clients, it's in your best interest to make sure that you take care of our clients and make sure that they are treated properly and respectfully despite their one bad days. So when a client has a negative experience, I tell the client, if we refer them to you, tell us, don't tell the person. And then what I do, because I know the owner, is I'll pick up the phone and I'll actually call the owner. I'll say, hey, here's what has happened and what the client said has happened. What's going on? And because we have that level of accountability, that our clients will never get kicked to the curb, disregarded, dismissed, and because I'm the one making the phone call or somebody from our team, we are keeping our medical providers accountable for their duty to service our clients, but also their agreement that they would give that extra layer of compassion. And our clients, our service is free for our clients because they are not the ones that pay us. And our loyalty, which is absolute to our clients, is always number one. The clients don't pay our bills, but our loyalty lies with the clients, because our whole model of helping and providing service is based on trust. And it's the reliable trust of saying, these people will take care of me. This organization will take care of me. There's been many stories, like I'll share one with you. One time a client actually called me and told me about, just some medical issues she's having. And she asked me, what do you think? And of course, I'm not a doctor. I told her, I'm like, I'm not a doctor. How come you don't call your doctor call your doctor instead of calling me? And this is quite a heartwarming response. It's kind of sad that it's actually true, but she said, John, the reason I called you is because I know you'll help us. And very heartwarming, very grateful, but it's sad that she's calling me for help when she should be calling the doctor. But that also gives you a reflection of the current state of how things were, the relationship of her and the medical system. So in creating this Indigenous friendly system, I'd like to share with you some guiding factors that were the structure of our thought process in building everything. Number one, it's a curious mind. With my lack of knowledge in the Indigenous culture and the medical system, I knew pretty much nothing. So I didn't have very many assumptions. So it was very important for me to not make assumptions or make guesses without any proof or verification from someone else. My partner, Adrian, he has the Indigenous experience of the medical system. His family, they worked for the band, so they were actually quite knowledgeable on how to use the medical system. They didn't have too many challenges there. Second thing that was a big factor in our thought process is questioning before making any assumptions. It's easy to make assumptions, but it's even more valuable to ask questions before you actually come to a conclusion. Because often when you make an assumption and you think you know, but it's totally off the mark, never mind when you're dealing with a sensitive issue, it can create major problems in terms of implementation, in terms of client usage, in terms of getting everyone to work together. So what we were always doing is we would be asking a lot of questions around information that we found before we would come to a conclusion to say, okay, talking to our Indigenous clients, talking to our medical providers, this is what I think will be an effective solution. And I think that is really our core genius, is that because we are, of neither world, we are able to get an unfiltered and unbiased opinion of what went on, because it's everyone's been there where they hear a person's version, and if you've only heard that person's version, very convincing, it sounds like this person's absolutely right until you talk to the other person, and then you hear that version, which from their perspective sounds absolutely correct, but not being on either side, you see where the misunderstandings happened. And that's our core genius, is when you find that middle spot, that's where effective solutions occur. Because the solution for, the solutions that our Indigenous clients want, the medical people could not do that. And the solutions that the medical people would want, it does not work for our Indigenous clients. So what we do is we are that, I guess, bumper cushion to bring both parties together and agree to, hey guys, this is how we're going to do it. Is that cool? Everybody's cool? Okay, we're going to agree. We're going to do that. And when things don't happen as we agreed, then we're that middle person to say, hey, this is what we agreed to. Let's stay on track so that everyone, everyone helps everyone and everyone has less gray hairs. And the last thing, what we're doing today, I don't think anyone is actually doing. And because it's so new, we don't really have a reference or a model to copy. So we had to build everything piece by piece. And to be completely honest, I still don't really know what I'm doing. And this is all based on my experience, of just a person wanting to help a person and keeping things fair and making sure that, everyone's upfront about things. So we were always making adjustments constantly because we're always evaluating, is this working? Is this not working? So yeah, those were the three things. Curious mind, asking questions, and making adjustments constantly is our guiding process in how we developed everything. So the first part of our thought process in the discovery is what we thought the problems were. Things such as, lack of knowledge around the healthcare, racism in the medical system, generalities about what the challenges our Indigenous clients face in the medical system. It gave us an idea of where to explore, but we realized that these general problems or generalities can never bring us solutions, because racism is a huge web of things. It could, the one thing that we're not asking is, what specifically are we talking about in racism? What kind of racist behaviors are there? That we didn't know about. And when we started kind of discovering and talking to medical professionals, talking to our clients, we realized generalities can never bring solutions because they are too general. You cannot eat an elephant in one piece. You have to eat it one piece at a time. So what we did is we took that whole elephant of racism, lack of knowledge, and we broke it down into small bite-sized pieces. And we started to chew away just at one part. So the number one thing is we help First Nations with healthcare. So what we asked ourselves is, okay, instead of focusing on, what's wrong and right about racism and knowledge. We focused on the process of how do we help our clients use the system, and more specifically, what are the reasons they are not using the system. And then as we took the time to speak to clients and build a working model, we realized that trust was the number one problem, that the clients didn't want to use the system. And trust probably wouldn't even be an accurate word, because it's the clients were way more fearful than not trusting. They were fearful of the actual medical system. So what we had to do is, okay, when you're fearful of something, it's often because you have preconceived notions of something from prior experiences. So we ask ourselves, how can we be different? What might we do so that we can plant that seed of, hey, we might be different. So what we did was we took the time to go into the communities and just be familiar. And as the clients have seen us week after week after week, we became approachable, and someone would come and say, hey, you guys help First Nations. I saw you here for the last 2 months. I have a question. And once people started using our systems, and then people started knowing more about us, that's where we finally cracked that shell of fear and mistrust. And a lot of people who don't take the time to research what has actually happened in Indigenous history, from the residential schools, hospitals, doctors, and society, they would think, well, it's just a simple problem. Get some counseling around that, and that's a deep a solution for regular trauma, yes, but not for intergenerational trauma, because intergenerational trauma goes way deeper than that. That is not as simple as just get some counseling. Another problem that we realized from our clients, due to the residential schools, the lack of education, social challenges, a lot of our clients knew that they had benefits, but they didn't know exactly what they were. They're like, yeah, I know the government takes care of me, but I don't really know what they actually cover. And I just kind of just show up and yeah, I hope that is covered. A lot of our clients had mentioned that they don't understand or are confused by the lingo used in the information that First Nations Health Authority has put out. And I have read it myself, and it's quite a lot to read, to be honest. We found that was a challenge for our clients. So what we realized is we need to make things simple and easy to use without all of this jargon or these fancy letters. So if you see a lot of our marketing advertising, it's so simple. One sentence is, it's basically, what do you need? This is how we get it for you. And all of our clients, all they really got to do is just show up and go through the process. And another big thing we realized is our clients didn't know that the whole medical system, everything revolves around getting a prescription. And that's kind of what we realized is they didn't understand the whole process of getting a prescription, going to see a specific doctor, and then getting whatever you need to get for help. And another big thing that I realized as a result of talking to other medical professionals is that the medical society's desire to protect their public image has silenced its members. And what I mean by this is, I would talk to nurses, other pharmacists, and they would complain about how if they had a better way to help somebody, or they had something that made sense, but it wasn't the way that these association did it, wasn't done the association's way, the association wouldn't allow them to do it, would give them, reprimand them if they did, and in the association's laws, you are not allowed to talk bad publicly about your society. And it's the whole thing of using, the party majority to pressure the individual, even though that it would help somebody. The society would say, sorry, that's not how we do it. And often too much, I would hear from people saying that it kills them inside knowing that they can't do anything for because they don't want to get in trouble with the association. They don't want to get fired. They don't want to lose their job. And the reality is that's the truth, right? Like, you got to pick your battles. You can't win them all. And when it's between your livelihood and your families versus somebody else's, you're always by human nature going to choose yourself. So we can't blame the individual for doing that. We got to look at, okay, what's this system of accountability within how the societies function, that they would rather do it their way as opposed to, what they say, helping, the population that they had sworn to serve. So I think that is a major problem. I didn't even realize what's happening, but it's very rampant in the society. Pharmacists are afraid of getting audited. Uh, Nobody wants to hear from the society, because whenever you hear from them, it's always usually because of bad news. Uh, this is something that I really discovered and got an intimate look into, were the social challenges of our clients. So, my history is I used to be a realtor, so we technologically savvy, we did things really efficiently. So talking to my clients, I asked them what social challenges existed. And as we try to help our clients go through the system, a few key themes had emerged in terms of social challenges. There's a lot of embarrassment to just ask. A lot of our clients don't want to ask because they feel it's a hassle of somebody else. They don't want to, be a hassle to somebody. A lot of it has to do with self-worth and probably more shame, um, shame and self-confidence. A lot of our clients, yeah, they will just kind of zone out and not want to ask for. They feel that, there's that kind of, I don't know, there's that social dynamic. And also lifestyle changes. This was a big one. A good portion of our clients don't have cell phones or have a more volatile lifestyle. So a lot of the times, a lot of appointments will be missed. Lots of reminders. We do a lot of reminders. Those were the things that I didn't realize or expect to come as a result of working in this industry, because I thought, it's easy. We book appointments, everyone comes, everyone's happy. And if it was that easy, that would have been amazing. But we realized that that's not the challenges and how our clients have grown up, their beliefs around things. So we had to create a system around them so that it was easy for them to use, not for us to do. And I think that's the key thing of what we do differently than other people is our system. It's designed around what our clients have said and complained about the other medical system and why they don't want to use it, or what didn't work for them, or what happened in that regular medical system. And we took and heard their feedback and actually built something around what our clients have actually let us know that was the issue. So a lot of issues around trust, racism, client usability. How did we actually solve it? Lack of trust. I took probably about 4 months of being at the downtown east side market by myself, because I realized, starting in Edmonton, that trust was a major issue in the medical system with Indigenous people. So I just placed myself in the middle of the downtown east side market, and I just stood there every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. People would see me. I would say hi. I would learn people's names. I would recognize their faces, because one thing I learned, as a result of being a realtor, is to build relationship. The number one thing that you have to do is acknowledge that person and remember their name. Just that small thing in any world puts you, sets the difference aside from everyone else. Very few people in today's world um, really remember your name. So I made an effort to be seen. I made an effort to remember people's names. So it was a whole probably 4 months till people actually started to realize, hey, this guy's legit. He's not a fly-by-night scammer, because we know that there's been many fly-by-night people who have zoomed in and pretended to help, First Nations, but what they actually did is that they helped themselves to First Nations. And I realized that, yeah, sure, I'm different, but if that is the belief that I have to go against, then I have to show them that we are different, not just give lip service and say, oh, trust me, we're different. I have the knowledge and understandings of residential schools, how the government had dealt with indigenous people. Lip service has been the curse, right, of what the government has done for indigenous people. So what I believed is talk less, do more. So I spend the time in downtown Eastside Vancouver building that sense of trust, getting to know the community, and finally creating those relationships, because our business is really based on the relationship of trust and that they will be taken care of. Discrimination and racism, it was eliminated by our involvement in terms of any complaints go to us and that we follow up with these complaints. One thing I realized is in a big way that we do things differently than other situations is because we actually follow up on when there is a complaint. We actually find out who has been punished or what has been done. We don't allow any unacceptable behavior to slide, not even once. Right? If something happens, we address it and we say we don't accept that. And maybe somebody's having a bad day. Everyone has bad days. You got to have that little bit of compassion. But it does not happen a third time ever. Maybe the first time was a mistake. Maybe the second time is another bad day. Things happen. But if this is something that repeatedly happens with somebody that we refer to, we will actually end that relationship. Even though they are the ones that write our checks, our loyalty lies to our client. And I think that's one thing that makes us very different from other social associations. When the government writes your check, you basically got to do whatever they tell you to. When the association holds your membership and they can take that away, you have to do whatever they tell you. Us, we're self-financed. And the people that we help, our clients, they don't pay us, so they can't tell us what to do. And the medical providers that pay us, our loyalty lies to the clients. So we're going to help them no matter what. And it doesn't matter who pays our bills. And that's what I think that one distinction gives us the independence and the adaptability to make things happen, where a lot of these social associations are struggling and wondering, are we even going to exist next year because we don't have enough money? Where for us, the money part, of course, your business, it's a challenge, but it doesn't challenge us in a way that we won't be around next year. There's absolutely no doubt that we will be around next year. There's absolutely no doubt that there's a demand for our service. So I'm not worried about that, right? So we don't have those kind of operational issues to deal with on a day-to-day. We can just develop, grow, and adjust quickly. Another thing that we've done to eliminate discrimination and racism is, again, I hand select these people that we work with, the medical providers. I interview them. I have discussions with them. And when I meet with these people, I meet at least 2 to 3 times before we agree to work together. And if most of our conversations are around making money, I don't work with those people, because those people are the same people who have taken advantage of the First Nations community in the past. I don't work with those people. We have different values. There's nothing wrong with it. Business is a business. It's their fair game. It's not what I do, not what we represent. We represent the people. We want to make sure that people are taken care of first and foremost. So I interview everybody, and I have yet to be wrong about somebody. Things have been short-lived relationships, but I've never picked somebody that wasn't able to add value or maintain that value. And if things were to change, I've always respectfully ended the relationship to say, hey, it's not working out. Our loyalty 100% lies with our First Nation clients. Okay. So give me 1 second. I gotta switch back. I'm gonna switch back to show you a slide. My apologies. Okay. Okay. So you guys have been watching me, blab my mouth for the last little while. But here comes to a point of, okay, big talker, let's see your walk. What have you actually achieved? Because Sounds great, sounds fantastic, it sounds like an awesome TED Talk, but this is where the proof is in the pudding. What have we done in our 2 years of existence? And that was my funny decoration. So one thing I wanted to share with everyone is this statistic. It's drug overdose stats from OPS in 2016. For those of you who don't know what OPS is, it's Overdose Prevention Society. So this is a place where they actually have active drug users go and they're supervised in their drug usage so that if someone overdoses, there's someone immediately there to save their life. So if you want to look at something, there's a lot of stats and everything else, but the most important one that I want you to focus on is this one, is where I've circled 40 overdoses in 2 weeks. So if you look at it on an average month, we're going to extrapolate 80 overdoses in 1 month. And this is at a site where it's supervised drug usage. So one's got to think, if this is 80 overdoses in 1 month at a supervised drug usage site, what's happening at the other sites that are not supervised? This kind of ties into the accomplishments that we've done. So what we've probably accomplished in 2 years, number one thing that our clients and we are very proud of is that in 2021, we prevented over 4,000 potential overdose deaths. Our first, there's nobody that I know in Vancouver, any association that is doing this except for our First Nation clients. So this is a high five and congratulations to our First Nations clients that are part of this program. And this is a great example of how First Nations and other non-Indigenous Canadians come together to save lives now, today, in the downtown east side. Another thing that we've recently done in April, starting of April 2021, is our First Nations Food for Life program. This idea actually came as a result of talking to our teammate Jana Ray, Tom. She says, there's no problem getting food in the downtown east side. And the interesting thing is this, if you didn't know, you can actually eat 12 times a day in the downtown east side. You can eat more times in the downtown east side than you can actually want to eat or even think about eating. I don't even think about eating 12 times a day. So what we want to do differently is we called it the Food for Life program. And instead of giving quantity of food and saying, hey, we feed thousands of people, what we are doing differently in our First Nations Food for Life program is we're bringing quality food down, because every human being can remember when they've had something super delicious to eat. It could be the highlight of your day. And that's what we want to do as an organization, is do something of quality so that, when we give something out, it's with more intention, more thought than just empty feed your stomach. We want to feed you something that is absolutely delicious and you're gonna be like, yum, 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 yum. So our first two things that we did, we had Mr. Bannock come out, and he was the first one for our program. The second one was West Coast Bannock. All of our, our clients, our friends, the food wasn't donated only to Indigenous, it was from our First Nation clients to the downtown east side. With our Food for Life program, we're creating smiles that people probably will remember. Another thing that we created is our First Nations Happy Feet program. One thing, as a result of talking to a lot of, fellow support workers, is I asked myself, who is helping the support workers of the downtown east side? So I had that discussion with our Podorthus, and I worked out an agreement with him where we have a First Nations Happy Feet program. And that's a program where if you are a social worker or you support the downtown east side and you do not have coverage for custom orthotics, we as an organization and the First Nations will give you free custom orthotics. And this ain't your Dr. Scholl's buy for $20. These are almost $500 custom orthotics made to your feet. All you got to do is tell us what organization you work for. We verify that you work for them. You come in, you get your feet scanned, and you will have custom orthotics for free from our First Nation clients and us, and our foot doctor. Another program we're proud of, our First Nations Sunny Smile program. I myself did not have a pretty smile, and I got, the braces and stuff like that, strained all my teeth, and I knew the power and how somebody's impacted when you have a nice smile. Most of our clients, um, they're missing teeth. That's a reality. So I talked to our denturist, and our denturist every year will donate one full set of dentures to from our First Nation clients and us to a downtown East Side support worker or somebody that is non-First Nations. And a full set of dentures is $4,000. So that's something that we're really proud of. So that's why we call it Sunny Smile Program. And if you guys are thinking, man, these are some cheesy names, I am the creator of these cheesy names. I'm not artistic. I'm just straightforward information. Sunny Smile, because people who have big smiles, yeah, sunny brightens up the room. A great collaboration that I'm so grateful for with educational institutions. We've provided 12 students with practicum opportunities. We work with Native Educational College, Langara College, and of course, Adler. So in 2020, we provided 6 practicum students opportunities. In 2021, already during the pandemic, we provided already 6 other students with practicum opportunities. And this is what I believe is, I want to show people the true side of downtown East Side, because everyone knows the negative side, but nobody knows what the core heart of what downtown East Side is about. One thing that downtown East Side as a neighborhood or as a community can teach people's children that I believe no other neighborhood can is that bring your kids down there. You'll see how a community comes together out of the sheer love of taking care of each other. And you will see how people should treat people without all the titles, without all these monies worth, all these exterior things. Down there, you have people that care. There's a strong sense of community, and your child or young person will learn how to be a human being. And I don't think any neighborhood in Vancouver for sure can teach that. And that's where I see it. That is the brightest and most unknown fact about downtown East Side. Thank you for your time and interest. My phone number is on there, my contact information. We're always looking for people to collaborate with, to work with, who have the common goal of changing and helping First Nations in Canada. And we want to connect with those people regardless of what business you're in. It's about, First Nations, Indigenous, other non-Indigenous Canadians coming together as a country, as people, to finally bring reconciliation to the Indigenous of Canada. And we still got to fight the government front, but I think more importantly, we as fellow human beings and Canadians, Indigenous, come together to help each other, to finally give the acknowledgement and the recognition that the Indigenous people deserve and should have so long ago had. So now I'm going to open it up to questions and answers, and hopefully everybody's not asleep or still on the call.
Thanks so much, John. So we probably have time for 1 or 2 questions. It'd be best probably to come off mute and ask them. Otherwise, you could put your question in the chat. Maybe we'll just stop the recording there.
Okay.